listen, do you know how many days there are till your exam? 10. Well, okay, so there are 10 days of work.
So
each day will count as 10 points towards a final test grade that should be 100% done in class. Most of it we'll do together. So you're basically earning your last test grade, but you're doing it one day at a time, one paper at a time. Okay, yes. And then at the end of the quarter or the end of the semester, you'll have a 100 broken up into 10 little baby test grades, so that if you're trying to get to an 85 for your exemption, this is the easiest way to do it. Okay? So the goal for today is we're going to practice graphing and finding inverses of square roots and cube roots. Okay, so look at number 1. Which way are we shifting? Left, right, up, down. Which directions? Okay, left 6 and down 4. So that'd be left 6, down 4 puts me right here. That makes my starting point -6, -4. Okay, then from there, the shape of a square root graph, is like this. Now, do you remember talking about that your square root graph can arch up or down? Yes? What's the difference? Inappropriate. Okay, positive square roots are the top half, and then number 2, do you see how it has a negative? That one's gonna go down. Haiti, please go sit down. Hi, you're in a school in class, and we're doing notes. Very aggressively. Okay, too much. Okay, so there's your square root graph. What's the domain?
-4.
Okay, but I need the x value, so how far back does it go?
Yeah, -6.
-6 to infinity, and then what about my range? -4 to infinity. Okay, because remember that these guys don't go down forever, not forever. They have a starting point and then they curve off. Okay? Alright, now your f to the -1, remember that that means inverse. You switch the x and the y. Very good. So if it was a square root x plus 6, now it's a square root y plus 6 minus 4. And instead of y equals, now it's equals x. Okay? Then from there, my goal is just to get that new y, now that they're backwards, to get it by itself. What do I do first? Okay, take the -4 across to the other side. Now it's a +4. So I have x plus 4 on this side. On the other side, I have y plus 6. Okay, then square both sides because it's a square root. And remember that when you square the x plus 4, you have to group it in parentheses to show they're squared together. Okay, then square and square root cross out. Y plus 6 carries down. Hey. And then what was the last step, UV?
Do you have a 6 or 7 period?
I have why? I mean, I don't have a class 6th, but I have a meeting today because it's Monday.
I just need to start making up hours, so.
I'm staying after every day this week. You could stay in mine for 7th if you don't have a 7th.
Well, I don't have a 6 or 7 period.
Okay, then yeah, you could sit in here. That's
Okay.
fine. Okay, so from here, that's your answer for down here. You can rewrite it if you want to. I'm going to, but you can also just put an arrow. Okay, now what would the starting point be for this new equation that we just wrote?
Left 4, down 6.
Okay, so left 4, down 6. So that would put me here. Okay, then this is the one thing about this unit that some of y'all seem to think was confusing. You have to pick a side of the parabola. So remember that x squared is a full parabola, but I only want one side at a time if I had a square root. So remember that the top half goes with the right side because those are both positive. The bottom half goes with the left side. So if I originally had a top, that's going to go with which side of my U, left or right? The right side. Okay? Top and right side go together. And the way that you would indicate that on your equation is you would put for x greater than -4. Now, where did I get -4 from? Well, that's my starting point. And I picked greater than because I want it to go to the right side. Okay? Then for my new graph, what's the domain? Where does my graph start? How far back? -4 to infinity. That should look familiar. What was that in my original? That was my range. Remember how those are always backwards to each other? And so then my range for this one starts how low? -6 to infinity. Okay, if those are not always crisscross to each other, then you know that you messed something up. Okay? Because the domain and range, the x and y's, are backwards for a function and for its inverse. Okay? Alright, go to number 2, please. Okay, which way are we shifting? Okay, to the right one, up 5. Good job, kiddos. That puts us right here. Okay, 1, 5 is my starting point. Then this time I notice that I have a negative on my square root. So instead of doing the top half, I'm going to do the bottom half. Okay, and then I'm going to put a little star here and put bottom half because of the negative. Okay, focus. Okay, what's the domain?
1 to infinity.
Okay, good job. 1 to infinity. And then for my range, remember that it has to go lowest to highest. Does this graph have a lowest point if my arrow is aimed down? So it'd be -infinity first, and then what's the highest the graph goes? 5. Okay? Now, for the inverse, remember, you switch the x and the y. Whenever you see f to the -1, that means inverse. So instead of -x minus 1, now it's a y minus 1. And then remember, your steps to solve are always the same. You want to get that new y by itself. What do we do first? Okay, minus the 5 across to the other side. So now I have that. Next step. Okay, now normally you would divide by -1, but there's a special property. Do y'all remember talking about that if it's a negative and you're going to square both sides, what's going to happen to the negative when you square both sides? It's going to end up crossing out anyway. So you don't have to worry about getting rid of the negative on a square root, because when you square both sides, it cancels out on its own. Okay? But normally, otherwise, you would have to take care of the negative. So this guy and this guy are gone. The negative is gone, and the square root is gone because of the squared. So all that I have left is y minus 1 equals x minus 5 squared. Last step, what do I do? Plus 1 plus 1. So it's x minus 5 squared plus 1. Now we're about to have to pick a side. Originally, I had the bottom half of the square root. Then am I going to want the left side or the right side to go with that?
We want the left side.
The left side, very good. So this is a bottom half. So when I graph it, I need to make sure that I graph my new one only the left side. So let's find the center. Look at your equation. Where are we going to start at?
Right 5.
Okay. Right 5 up 1. That's going to be right here. But then I want the left side, we said. So it would be like that. And then do y'all remember talking about that you have this symmetry around that diagonal? Okay, that should always be there when you graph it. Now let's put in, do we use a greater than or less than for our side if I wanted the left side? Less than or equal to. And then you'd put 5. And remember that 5 is always this middle number here, but the opposite. So if I went over 5, that's my split point where I'm picking a side. Okay? Point here was 5, 1. And then if you already found your domain and range correctly, then you already know for the inverse function that they're just going to be backwards. So if my domain was originally 1 to infinity, now that's my range here. If my range was originally -infinity to 5, that is now my domain. Okay? All right, turn the page. Okay, there are several numbers that I need you to change. I'm going to have you change them now in case any of you work ahead. On number 3, am I good to turn it? Number 3, I want you, I don't know why it's cubed. It should have been 3 square roots, so it should be this. On number 3, square root x plus 2 minus 8. So that it's just like the other ones. Okay? Then we're going to do number 4 here in a minute. So turn to the back page. I'm going to have you fix the numbers and then we'll do number 4 together. Okay? Good? You fixed it? Next one, this should have been a cubic root of x minus 5. Just tuck a little 3 in there. That should have been a cubic root, not a square root. And then the last one should have also been a cubic root. So it would have been cubic root x minus 2 plus 7. Okay? So the first 3 were square roots, the last 3 are cube roots. That's what it was supposed to be. Okay, then turn back to number 4. We're going to do that one together. Okay?
That's number 6, right?
Number 6. Yeah, you're just changing the squared thing to a cubic root. Okay, good?
Yeah.
Okay. So look at number 4. Where's my start point going to be? All the rules are the same. Minus 3, 6. Very good. So I'm going to go backwards 3. And then up 6. That puts me right here. Okay? From there, it is a cubic root. The graph for a cubic root, you're going to have your starting dot, and then it's going to squiggle sideways, so it will look like that. Now, that's the shape. Obviously, we're going to put it on this starting point. But it should be like a sideways squiggle, and it should be uphill because it's a positive. So I'm going to draw my graph here. It should go uphill like that. Okay? Good. Do you remember the domain and range for these? Since they're headed opposite directions?
All real numbers.
All real numbers, yep. So for domain, I put x within IR. For range, I put y within IR. Okay? And automatically, if the domain and range were IR, then what are the domain and range going to be for the inverse? The same. So you can go ahead and rewrite them if you want to. Let's find our inverse. So remember, to find the inverse, f to the negative 1, you're going to do cubic root y plus 3 plus 6 is x. Okay, what do we do first to solve?
Try 6.
Okay, take the plus 6 over to the other side. Now it's an x minus 6. Cubic root y plus 3 is still on the inside. How do I get rid of a cubic root? Cube. And remember, just like on the other side, you have to group the x and the minus 6 together and cube them on the inside. Okay? Then from there, these guys are gone. I just have a y plus 3 left over. What's my last step? Good. I'm going to take that plus 3. I'm going to move it across as a minus 3. Now, can I combine it with the 6? No. Remember, you have to put it at the back because he can't go with the 6 since the 6 is inside. So it would be x minus 6 cubed minus 3. Okay, where will the starting point be for that new equation?
Right 6, down 6.
Okay, right 6, down 3. So that'd be here. Oops, I went to the wrong one. That one right there. Okay, who is that? Is that you, Sarah? Wow. Okay, then if it's a cubic, instead of being a sideways squiggle, which way does it go? It's uphill squiggle, right?
So what if it's minus?
We'll do number 5, I think, is the one with the minus. Hold on, let's just finish this one first. So if it's squiggling uphill, it would look like that. Okay?
I thought it was squiggling the other way.
So remember that cubic roots squiggle sideways, cubics squiggle up and down.
I thought it was in a squiggle like to the left instead of to the right.
Well, no, because remember too, you want these to match each other.
Well, yeah, it will touch. Dude, what?
So, okay, Then what would your domain and range be?
All real numbers.
Good. So all real numbers. All real numbers. And then starting point. What was my starting point for that one? Good. Okay, there's one more left that we are going to do. It is number 5. Turn the page. Kidis, we took the negative off on number 3, so I think maybe you didn't catch that. Yeah. Okay, focus. Focus. Okay, may I turn? Good? Okay, number 5, where are we starting? What's our starting point?
Right 5, down up 3.
Okay, so right 5 up 3 is right here. Then remember that if it's a cubic root, it's a sideways squiggle. Will it be uphill or downhill? Normally it's uphill, but in this case, if there's a negative, it's going to go downhill. So it's going to squiggle this way. Watch. Here, and then here. Okay? Now, also keep in mind that if you forget what these graphs are, okay, if you forget what these graphs look like, you have a graphing calculator. Okay? Then from there, remember, domain and range are both all real numbers because it's a squiggle. Okay, let's set up the inverse. Remember, x and y need to be reversed. So it'll be negative cubic root y minus 5 plus 3 equals x. So remember, whenever you're finding the inverse, you switch the letters, then you switch the sides. What do we do first?
Minus 3.
Okay, take the plus 3 across as a minus 3. So you have x minus 3 and then negative cubic root y minus 5. Okay, now, do you remember when we said when you square both sides, the negative crosses out? Is that true for cubics?
You have to divide.
You have to get rid of the negative. So I'm going to go ahead and cube both sides. But that does not cross out the negative if it's not a squared. Squareds, they cancel out. With a negative, it's going to stay right there. And I'm going to have to get rid of that in its own. Oops, the cube is gone. So now it's just y minus 5. So now, to get rid of the negative on one side, there's still a negative out here. I'm going to have to times by negative 1 here, times by negative 1 here. And that's going to take this negative from the front and this negative from the front and cross them out. So now all I have left is y minus 5. How do you get rid of minus 5? So I'm going to plus 5 here and then plus 5 here. Now remember, you can't add the 5 to the 3 because they're already grouped separately without the 5. So you have negative x minus 3 cubed plus 5. Okay, where will my starting point be for the inverse graph? Right 3 up 5, very good. That will be here. And then which way is my graph going to go for this one if it has a negative in the front? Uphill or downhill? Downhill, so I'll have to squiggle it that way. And every time you should notice that your graphs are looking the same on both sides. You should have a line of symmetry on that diagonal. Okay? Then remember that your domain and range will also both be all real numbers. For all cubics, that's always true. Okay? Okay, you have 2 left to do. Then you're going to come show me your packet. You're going to keep it in case you need to study. Okay, and you have like almost 30 minutes to do 2 problems. So let's get it